Hello, folks. Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government here. We see things happening really fast in politics, and sometimes it's a little dizzying. But this past 5, 6 days has been a whirlwind in conservative communications. Truthfully, we see Fox News has basically cast themselves to the wind. It started last week when they decided that they were going to settle a case with Dominion voting systems without really contesting the validity of the charge that what they were saying on the air was true, or it was not at least believable, and hence exempt from any defamation suit. So they didn't. And I'll go into that in a little bit. Followed by the announcement on Friday that Dan Bongino, who is probably the most dynamic of the regular appearance people, as well as having his own show on the weekend to complement what he was doing during the week on his radio program and on his live stream. Dan, it was an energy ball who was totally fearless and a truth teller. And Dan's no longer on Fox News. The report was that they were unable to work out contract details, and I'm confident they were unable to work out content or contract details. I will premise this by saying Dan's a long-term friend of mine. We've been friends for quite a while, well before most people had ever heard of him, when he was just a candidate for election in the state of Maryland. But given that, it's a little personal with Dan because I really like him. I know the guy, and he's genuinely a good guy. And then on this morning, we wake up to the news that Tucker Carlson's is no longer with Fox News. And I think it's pretty clear he was fired. On Friday, he signed off saying, "I'll see you on Monday." And on Monday, Fox News has said, "No, you won't." His last day was Friday. That doesn't happen in a situation where somebody isn't fired. And, it's not just me who's sitting there saying that. I mean, the fact of the matter is, we've got CNBC reporting that Tucker Carlson leaves Fox News in wake of Dominion defamation settlement. So it's pretty clear that the analysis, not just my analysis, that the analysis as a whole is this was fallout from the Dominion defamation settlement. And I don't think that's an unreasonable analysis. But remember, Tucker Carlson got in trouble for taking on the establishment long before this. We just have to roll back in history just a short, 3-4 weeks to when Tucker showed the J6 videos. Maybe it was 6 weeks ago. Showed the J6 videos showing Jacob Chansley, the left and establishment's anointed shaman of the insurrection. I use the quotes around that. Showing him being escorted by Capitol Police to the Senate chambers. He didn't know how to get there. He had no idea where the Senate chambers were. He didn't know how to get there. The Capitol Policeman escorted him to open the door and let him in. Okay, that's very, very clear. Others were in there, a few, but this was hardly the calamitous tearing down the doors and knocking everybody down. And people were were scrambling for their safety environment that was described to us for 2 years. Tucker played that video. He played that video and totally dismantled that argument. People like Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell criticized Fox News and Tucker for playing that video. That's that's straight from the establishment mouth. We didn't want that video played. He played it. On the evening of Donald Trump's indictment, Tucker Carlson played the entirety of Donald Trump's speech responding to the indictment, getting massive numbers from Fox News, but certainly not putting Trump front and center and giving him a massive boost in credibility in the polls. The objective was to freeze Trump out, and Tucker said, "No, I'm going to play what people are interested in. I'm going to play what's in the news and what matters in the news, and it's my show." And Tucker was the top-rated show on Fox News. There's battling back and forth between the 5 and Tucker, different shows, different time slots, but there's no doubt that Tucker was the lead dog in pulling the sled. The and then you had the next, within a couple of days, Tucker doing a one-on-one interview with President Trump, something that the never Trumpers, the Paul Ryans of the world, who were sitting on the board of directors of Fox, weren't very happy with. Something that clearly Rupert Murdoch, who had announced that they were not going to be pro-Trump in this election cycle, wasn't happy with. Certainly something that the more liberal sons of Rupert Murdoch, who've been attempting to shift Fox News to the left to moderate them to some extent, can't have been happy with. So he was poking the thumb in the eye of the bosses there for a while, and he was doing so to A, give the viewers what they wanted, A, and B, to tell the news story that others weren't telling. And as a result, is it a surprise that he was removed? No, wasn't a surprise. Was it shocking? It was still shocking because the suddenness of it, and it appears as though there's a guillotine running down the hallways of Fox News. And if you happen to ever say anything nice about Donald Trump, you're it's heading for your door. And so a lot of other people are, over there have got to be scrambling and sending their resumes out. But that's that's the reality. So let's take a look at the, I think this is pretty straightforward. And, but, and people, I'm going to start with the end. People often ask, what can I do? Well, I'm not going to take action on this because quite honestly, you know what to do. And the answer is, you should, if it were me, I'm going to send Fox News a notification that, they've lost the trust, and that, and I'm not going to call and tell other people you should boycott Fox News. You're going to do that. You're going to make that your own decision. But there's an old saying you go woke, you go broke. And quite honestly, that saying in most cases isn't true. I hate to say that, but it is. Disney still made lots of money in spite of their wokeness. But the truth is, somebody like Fox is in the same position that Anheuser-Busch was when they decided to completely eviscerate their own users, their own product users, and then have their brand marketer get on television and say, basically say that she hated the people who actually use their product. So all in all, yeah, and so they got creamed, and that person lost their job this weekend. But the fact of the matter is, this is another example where Fox News doesn't have a diverse following of their network. They do not. They have a conservative following of their network. And if they lose that conservative following of their network, they then they'll be less than CNN, because what do they have? Who's going to come and watch their show suddenly? Think moderates are going to watch Fox News? No. CNN's desperately trying to get the moderate audience. They just fired Don Lemon, by the way, towards that end. So CNN's desperately trying to get go back to being the Clinton News Network rather than the Commie News Network. So back to the days when CNN had some credibility. So that's where they're trying to go. Fox News isn't going to suddenly re-image themselves in a way that people who have decried them and demonized them for 20 years are suddenly going to watch their show. So they've really created they're really committing corporate suicide in terms of what they're doing. And I promise we talk a little bit about the Dominion systems. I want to put it into context once again. You cannot talk about Tucker Carlson being fired without talking about the Dominion voting systems case and how that impacted Fox's decision making. And these decisions were likely made at the same time that they decided to settle the case. So that's it. Just understand these two things. You cannot separate the two things. And what I've been saying on the media for a month, 2 months, when talking about the Dominion voting systems case, is Fox News has chosen to not contest the underlying claim that the Dominion voting systems were vulnerable. That in fact, it was a legitimate thing to report on the vulnerability of the system. And, and so you can do whatever you want to do, but this is not something that is a partisan thing. I'm going to just point to a letter that was sent by Democrat members of Congress, three senators, and did something wrong there. Three senators, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Ron Wyden from Oregon, and one member of Congress, Mark Pocan, and that questions the validity of Dominion voting systems and how reliable their counting is. I'm going to just read you one paragraph. I'm hoping you can read it, but if you can't, I'm going to just read the paragraph for you. And this is on page 3 of their letter. And I would encourage you to go to just look up 2019 Senate Democrats do letter opposing on questioning Dominion systems. This letter was sent to Dominion voting systems. I'm quoting, in 2018 alone, voters in South Carolina were reporting machines that switched their votes after they'd inputted them. Scanners were rejecting paper ballots in Missouri, and busted machines were causing long lines in Indiana. Sound familiar? That's 2022, not just 2020. In addition, researchers recently uncovered previously undisclosed vulnerabilities in nearly 36 back-end election systems in 10 states. These are all footnoted, okay? So these are all footnoted in the letter, which we'll have a link to this up on our website tomorrow morning. And just this year, this is 2019, after the Democratic candidate's electronic tally showed he received an improbable 164 votes out of 55,000 cast in a Pennsylvania state judicial election in 2019, the county's Republican chairwoman said, quote, nothing went right on election day. Everything went wrong. That's a problem, end quote. This is a Democrat. These are Democrats, 4 Democrats running Dominion systems. These problems threaten the integrity of our elections and demonstrate the importance of election systems that are strong, durable, and not vulnerable to attack. Okay. That letter was sent by 4 Democrat members to Dominion, questioning the validity of of their system. And you know what never happened? None of those people were censored for saying that. As crazy as it might seem, it was perfectly okay. It was perfectly okay to express that opinion in writing in 2019. Not so much, apparently, in reporting on the news in late 2020, early 2021, when a news agency basically said, oh, we did the verboten. We're paying you $787 million to give you because you sued us, because we essentially said what the senators said in 2019. What's more, Fox News has a responsibility to actually report on the news. Quite crazy idea. And you had the president of the United States and later the former president of the United States complaining that this was a problem in the election. So it was a legitimate news story to be reported on. The Fox News anchors, the Fox News, the Tuckers and the Seans and others, didn't have to believe it to be true or not. They were reporting on a story that was a national news story that cut to the heart of the very essence of American democracy, cut to the essence of whether the consent of the governed was going to be followed or not, whether the election represented that. I will point out that in 2017, on January 20th, to be exact, of 2017, the Washington Post, the newspaper of record in Washington, D.C., of our nation's capital, on the front page had a headline, "The Resistance Begins," urging bureaucrats and others to take down the Trump presidency by becoming partners with the Post in attacking the objectives of the Trump administration. We had a whole FBI investigation around Russiagate that we know was a completely concocted fantasy coming out of the Clinton campaign, perpetuated by the FBI, the Department of Justice, and later the Mueller investigation. We had Ukraine, the whole Ukraine thing, which was a completely concocted impeachment designed to around an illegal leak of information from National Security Council personnel and of a conversation that they misrepresented, and which anybody who read the actual conversation when the transcript was released by the president days later would have said, who was honest, would have said, okay, he had a conversation with the Ukrainian president. Imagine what an idea. So all in all, I think we have a choice here. And the choice we have is, are we going to support alternative media or not? Are we going to support, are we going to try to, or are we going to just continue staying in the mainstream? And continuing to watch Fox News is a choice. But every eyeball that's given to Fox News is an eyeball that says Tucker shouldn't have been publishing the J6 stuff. He shouldn't have been doing those things. Because trust me, the person who replaces him won't. Tomorrow we're going to have a cartoon. It's a little preview. Tomorrow we're going to have a cartoon that Tony Branco's doing. I haven't seen it yet, but I talked to him on the phone this morning, urging him to do it. That deals with this situation. And I think it's interesting that, it's funny but sad. But the truth is, with the modern Fox News, they may feel more comfortable with Don Lemon being in the primetime slot, with Geraldo Rivera being a solo artist on their primetime slot, than with Tucker Carlson. That's corporate suicide, plain and simple. So take it for what it's worth. I'm going to answer some questions now, because this is I'm just so pissed off, and I feel badly for Tucker. I feel badly for Dan Bongino, but I feel badly for the country, because Fox News was an important part of pushing back against the elitist narrative for 20 years. And I think they've just effectively slit their own throats. See, I don't think Fox actually fired Tucker, though. I think they settled an agreement. Maria, that's an interesting question. That's always the nuance. He had a contract. Okay. So of course they settled. The question is, he wasn't given an option. This wasn't like, oh, gee whiz, we're going to continue paying you. He didn't go to them and say, I quit. They went to him and said, you're not on our air anymore. We'll pay you X amount out to buy out your contract. That's still being fired. The contract gets bought out. That's still being fired. Be vigilant is another tack, and I think it's another one. Yeah, listen, yeah, Suzanne, this is exactly what you describe. I need to get a haircut. This is exactly what you describe. It's an attack. It's a problem. I'm not going to call for a boycott. I think everybody needs to do what they feel is right. But it is Fox corporate executives have clearly made a decision about the direction they want their company to go. That is their right to do so. They're accountable to their shareholders and really no one else. And if their shareholders say, sit there and abandon them and say, I'm not owning this anymore. I don't know what I bought. I don't know what I'm buying at that. If their viewers say, I don't trust you anymore to be providing honest news, because the people who are truth tellers on the network are no longer there and the Geraldos are. If you want to sit there and say, that's for viewers to decide. I'm not their audience. I don't need, I'm not their audience, truthfully. You are. And, so it's up to you to decide what you want to do and how you want to handle it. Arizona Patriot Gal, that's the absolute truth. Tucker will floor wherever he goes as long as he keeps speaking the truth. That's the interesting part about this. And I think it shouldn't be lost on anybody that in the new media, Fox is much less important for a Tucker or for a Bongino because they're established, and they're established kind of commodities who conservatives look to independently. Dan Bongino does, he's got a large audience, probably a larger audience on his streaming service, his streaming show than he has on Fox. He's got a large audience on his radio audience. Probably more than he has an audience on Fox. The challenge with this is, but Fox being constantly on Fox is a validator in terms of keeping, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. If you're there, you're in sight, and there's a value, a marketing value to it, which both Tucker and Dan will feel a little bit. But the truth is, we have to support alternative media, and I hope you'll include what we do here as alternative media, and that you'll share this and urge people to subscribe to Americans for Limited Government, to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook channel, to our Rumble channel, to our Truth Social channel, to all the channels that we belong to, because we put this information out for you, and we try to deal with facts and not just deal with rhetoric that doesn't have any background to it. I don't really try to give you bubblegum. I try to give you some meat on the bone that you can use. And so I hope that you will be, that you'll be supportive of this network, and will share our videos and continue to support them. Let's see here. Sorry, Rick, it's too upsetting. The threats to people standing up for real justice being attacked and ignored by the very corruption put in place by biased criminal justice is clearly taking over our country. Michael, I'm sorry too. I wrote a piece on this today. I finished about maybe 15 minutes before I came on the air. And I point out a couple of other examples, which quite honestly, if I mention those examples, nobody will ever see this video. So I'm not going to mention those examples on this video, because you have to self-censor so the 80% can be seen, because you won't end up getting the other 20% seen. So I would encourage you guys, if you're not subscribed to Americans for Limited Government, go to the subscribe, click the button, and you'll be able to, and you'll get the email tomorrow with the op-ed I wrote this morning or this afternoon. But yeah, we're in deep trouble. I'll give you another example, Michael, and I don't, this goes off point, but it's something that's equally disturbing, and it's the same idea. In Wisconsin, there's a story about 4 14-year-old girls who were subjected to a male coming into their locker room, stripping down naked, and effectively engaged in the child abuse that existed because of that. This is a case that's made some news. The facts of it are the facts. Now, the school district's trying to say, oh, well, we don't have a complete picture. Well, the complete picture is an 18-year-old male walked into a stupid girl's locker room, took off his clothes under the guise that he was pretending to be a female. And that was and these girls were subjected to child abuse in their public school. Here's the problem. It happened in Dane County, Milwaukee. What happened was against the law. Okay, Wisconsin statutes say it's against the law. But will the Milwaukee prosecutor prosecute it? Or the Dane County prosecutor prosecute? There's no sign that that's going to occur. Will the school board hold people accountable? No, the school board's making excuses for it. So, and the school district's making excuses for it. So if the prosecutor won't prosecute, well, maybe you can get the attorney general. Well, that's not going to happen. Well, what if you file a lawsuit, a civil suit? Well, it's going to go to the Supreme Court at some point in Wisconsin, and the Supreme Court's now 4-3 advantage Democrat, because $45 million was spent just about a month ago by the left to elect a far left-wing Democrat to the Supreme Court and tip the balance of the Supreme Court. So where do you go for justice? You think the federal government's going to sue the Biden administration? You think the Merrick Garland DOJ is going to be concerned about the civil rights of these four girls? No. Where do you go for justice? That's the challenge. That's what happens when you lose elections. But it should never come to that. Our country, Michael, this is the thing that's so frustrating to me. Our country, our laws are supposed to be extra, beyond the elections. If somebody comes in, they win an election and they change the laws, that's how laws get changed, not by having people say, well, I'm just not going to prosecute that. I'm going to predispose and say, I'm going to nullify the law that's in place because I don't agree with it. They effectively, by doing that, they negate the will of the people. The will of the people exists in the state legislature, in the Congress, where the will of the people is, those are your elected representatives. They pass legislation. A governor elected by the people sign it. It's not up to the judges and the prosecutors to decide whether they like it or not. It's their job to enforce it. It's not their job to say, oh, we're gonna say it's okay to abuse children. It's their job to enforce the law. If they don't like, the people in Wisconsin don't like the law, they need to elect the legislators that will change the law. They need to elect school board members who will change the law. But they don't get the right. They don't get the right to nullify the law based on a wokeness that wasn't revealed in an election. So it's just a very simple. It's frustrating because at some point you look at it, you say, where I tried to come up with a place these people could go, and there's very few places they could go. I guess a federal lawsuit would take, they'd have to fight for 3 years. The kids would be, as girls would be in college by the time they got to the Supreme Court. But a federal lawsuit on this to the Supreme Court might be valid as a civil rights violation of these 4 girls. But that's a long way to go. And where we are 4 years from now, given the push to put transgenders into everything, I don't know. So I've now hit 2 subjects I'm not allowed to talk about on YouTube. So I'm probably banned. But with that, I'm going to just continue taking a couple of more and try not to get myself into any more trouble. Yeah, Sam, sadly, I can't disagree. D. Delaney, I will not watch anymore since you fired Tucker. He didn't deserve it. The left does it all the time. Sue them. Yeah, D. I'm certainly, truthfully, I'm not a Fox watcher because I spend all day reading this stuff and kind of consuming it, and the top, I'm talking about it at a top level, which, kind of informative level is interesting. Tucker did some unique things that were worth looking at, but by and large, I don't spend any time on the network because by the time I've spent my 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day reading everything and trying to figure out what's going on, writing and doing these kind of videos and the like, kind of want to sit back and watch an Angel baseball game. So that's kind of, just sorry to say, but I've stopped watching mainstream media since the rigged 2022 election. I've enjoyed following Tucker on Facebook. David, that's following Tucker on Facebook is an alternative. Michael, I see your thing, your personal story, and I'm my heart goes out to you, and I thank you for sharing that. It's painful to know that continues, and that unfortunately it's becoming normalized. Let's see here. So Christy Segovia wants to talk about Abby Grossberg. So she's, I understand why why this Abby Grossberg's being brought up. She's a former Fox producer who's claiming sexual harassment against Tucker and the like, and then saying that Fox tried to got her to give false testimony in the defamation trial. I'm reminded of former Trump aide. I don't remember her name, but former Trump White House aide who was nobody heard of beforehand, who came up with a story that Donald Trump, in the back of the limousine, the Beast, jumped forward and attempted to wrestle the steering wheel away from the Secret Service driver so he could drive him to the Capitol. Okay, a story that was wholly and completely untrue. That she testified before Congress saying that it was untrue. Same person was applying for jobs with Trump and Trump Inc. until she wasn't. and didn't get a job. And suddenly she found it to be very convenient to create a story out of whole cloth that was false. But it got a lot of publicity. And so I'm kind of just somewhat I'm a little jaded in my view when people suddenly come up with stories when in real time, when they can get a big media push in today's world where people want to be Instagram famous. The easiest way to be Instagram famous is to work for a Republican or work for a Fox News or Newsmax or anywhere else, OAN, and then come out and decry Newsmax or OAN, and suddenly you'll become Instagram famous, and maybe you'll get some money off the advertising. But so I'm just kind of not. I'm not all that impressed. Conservative Voice is being canceled. Yes, it is. But here's the thing: you don't have to be canceled. It's you have a choice, and it's up to you to make that choice and move ahead the way you want to do it and how you want to handle it. I'm going to take one more. Tucker will flourish wherever he goes as long as he keeps speaking the truth. I think that's where we started. I think that's where we need to end. Tucker, Dan Bongino will flourish wherever they go because they have a proven nameplate that people it's worth following. And as long as there are advertisers that are willing to advertise on their platforms, and there are platforms that are willing to carry them, and there's financial systems that will cash checks, they will still exist. One of the great things that Dan Bongino's been doing is trying to create a parallel economy where conservatives can exist without being blown up by the Amazon web systems and the like or web services, which destroyed Parler. And so by trying to develop these alternative web platforms and the like, payment systems and other things, Bongino has really been at the root of trying to stop the cancellation of Americans, and quite honestly, it's why you should support those. It's why those are systems that need to be supported, and so they can thrive, because we're no longer, GoDaddy decides you're not on the air anymore. You're not on the air anymore. It's just that simple if you're a website. So go ahead and so I think we'll end on that. And I just appreciate you all listening, and share this, subscribe. We have opportunity to listed down below, right down here. Please subscribe and keep tabs on what we're doing. The single best way to know what's going on is to subscribe so you get the daily email. With that, I'm going to sign off and appreciate you all hanging with us, and we will talk to you tomorrow, hopefully.